Trump is finished. The former President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, has been arraigned in federal court down in Miami. It might have been a bright and sunny day in South Florida, but it was a dark and stormy night for one Donald J. Trump, who now has a thick, heavy cloud hanging over his fledgling presidential campaign. 37 federal charges, any one of which, if convicted, could doom him to a life behind bars. At the ripe old age of 78, it won't take much of a prison sentence to put Trump away for the rest of his life. And for those of you unaware, what is the terrible crime that Trump committed? Was it treason to Russia? Was it Russia collusion? Was it denying weapons to Ukraine and thus exposing them to a Russian invasion? Was it taking a bribe from Putin in an agreement to be his puppet while president? Was it any of that? Oh, no, actually, it had nothing to do with Russia, apparently. They're charging him for, how do I put this? Overdue library books. Yes, the President of the United States, when he left office, decided to take some documents with him. And the librarian of the United States, who, as we all know, is very important and powerful, they are the bedrock of our democracy, the unelected librarian of the United States. She took her glasses that were hanging down around her neck. As you know, librarians always keep their glasses down there, so they're always closed. She put them on, and she looked closely, and she saw that Trump had not returned his library books. And so, in all her wisdom, she ordered a raid on Mar-a-Lago, which found that Trump had, in fact, been keeping overdue library books from the bureaucracy. He was keeping them for himself, potentially to disclose at a later date. Good heavens, imagine the horror if government documents were exposed to the American people. Oh my gosh, it would be the end of America. What would America be without untold millions and millions of secrets being kept from the voters at any given time? My gosh, if we didn't have all these secrets, the voters might actually be able to make informed decisions when they cast their ballots. No, we can't have them doing that. We can't have them knowing the whole truth. You see, voters must only be exposed to the facts that the bureaucracy wants them to hear, so that they can ensure that voters always vote the right way. It would be very dangerous if voters started to vote the wrong way, you see. And thus, the Department of Justice had no choice but to indict one Ronald Blum for the high crime and misdemeanor of possessing an overdue library book. 37 counts. And from what I understand, an individual charge. I don't know if these are all the same charge, just 37 counts of the same charge. Any one of them, if convicted, would likely put Trump away for up to 10 years, which almost certainly would doom him to die behind bars. Now, there is an outsized chance that perhaps, if this trial takes place next year or something, and Trump gets sentenced to 10 years in prison, and he's, he'll be 79 then or something, maybe he'll live to be 90, and so therefore he will see the outside world. That's possible. But there's a good chance that over the decade that he will spend behind bars in a supermax, with all of the other serial killers and terrorists, there's a good chance that he will pass away. But that's just the price you have to pay if you want to hold on to your library books too long, and if you want to expose certain government secrets to the American people. My gosh, can you think about, at least, Trump has some sense, so he didn't do this, but imagine how bad things would have been if Trump had disclosed the truth about the JFK assassination and how the CIA brutally murdered him. I mean, could you imagine how much trouble Trump would be in then? I mean, Trump didn't even tell us anything, really. He apparently had some classified documents that he might have disclosed at some point, but Trump already said, oh my gosh, I would never disclose what happened to JFK. It's too horrible. It would tear our country apart. Which is his way of saying, well, yeah, of course the CIA did it, but I mean, I can't throw them under the bus for that. I mean, that would cause too many problems. Now, I guess thankfully for Trump, he was released without bond, released on his own recognizance. It's kind of funny when you have a billionaire, they don't charge him bond, but if you're like a homeless guy, they ask for like $250,000 bond. It's quite stupid, but I guess this is the way things have to be. They got to get him on something, and I'm sure I hear there's gonna be more charges in the future. We don't know what those will be about, but I guess you throw when the old saying goes, you throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and you see what sticks. When you run out of spaghetti, I mean, you start throwing the Fruit Loops, but they're not really going to stick. But you hope maybe if you get the wall a little sticky by throwing some other stuff at it first, then the Fruit Loops, at least one of them, will stick when it hits the wall, if only for a few seconds. And then you can claim victory and say, you know what, we did it, boys. Trump did not get elected president. Now, they are showing a little bit of restraint by not putting him away and not locking him up without bail, which is what they did to all the January 6ers. So they are still showing a bit of restraint. They're not going totally nuts on him yet. And that, to me, would seem to suggest that perhaps, at the end of the day, if he gets convicted, they won't lock him away either. And I'm torn on whether or not that's good for Trump or bad for Trump. I think that as this process unfolds and they try and martyr Trump, that will make him more popular. It will certainly guarantee that he will win the nomination. I mean, in case it wasn't already clear by this point that Trump was going to be the nominee, today is definitely the day that Trump won the Republican nomination. There's no turning back for him at this point. You martyr a guy like this, people are going to rally around him. And so the question is, if they convict him next year, will people rally around him in the general election? If he's in prison, I think definitely so. If he's free, though, if they just sort of convict him and then say, okay, you're free to go, Mr. President, we're going to commute your sentence, does that kind of take the wind out of the sails of his martyrdom argument? I think it might. So we'll have to see. I certainly don't think that any of this is going to be terrible for him. I don't think it's going to hurt him a whole lot. The kinds of people who are concerned and think that it's a bad thing, oh my gosh, if Trump got indicted, he must really have done something wrong. Those kinds of people, we're not going to vote for Trump to begin with. So you don't have to worry about them. The fact that, you can get these polls with a bunch of people who say, oh my gosh, Trump definitely shouldn't run for president now that, now that he's been indicted, that just shows he's a bad guy. Oh, guess what? The people saying that, we're not going to vote for him to begin with. So that doesn't matter. What you have to worry about is this going to energize his own base? Is this going to get more low-propensity voters out there to go, you know what, I do need to vote because this is important, because it's not right what they're doing to this guy. And when you look at it like that, this is a positive thing for old Trumpy Bear. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.